Well, good morning, everyone. I want to take a second and acknowledge that I am joining you from Treaty 6 territory and the traditional lands of the Métis. My name is Samantha Becotte, and I am the president of the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation. And first off this morning, I just want to share a huge thank you to everyone, literally everyone across Saskatchewan. First off, teachers, the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation members who were out for extended periods of time in extreme cold yesterday. But it wasn't just teachers standing together in solidarity across the province, demanding more from this government. Parents and students were out there as well, businesses and other members of the public. I was down in Regina for a while as well. I was able to stop in Saskatoon later in the day, and it was steady honking up and down the streets, showing support of teachers in this fight that we're in right now, and support for kids. That was the core of it. It is support for kids and ensuring that they're going to be able to be successful in their pre-K to 12 education. As well, a huge thank you to the business owners for their donations or opening up their spaces. I know there were churches as well, opened up spaces for teachers and others who are joining the picket lines to warm up. As well, just again, members of the public who walked with teachers, students who came and walked with teachers or brought warm drinks. It really was an incredible day, despite the cold, despite the circumstances. It was so positive to see so many people joining together to demand more for our kids and demand a better investment in our kids' future and better commitments. So it was just absolutely overwhelming. And again, to the media, to all of you that are here today, thank you for your continued support in shining a light on the issues that we have been talking about in education over this course of bargaining, but also in a longer term. We've been talking about the issues in education for our last 2 rounds of bargaining. At least 8 years we've been talking about this here as teachers in Saskatchewan. We all stood together yesterday and sent a very clear message to this government that supports for students is not only important, it is critical that we ensure that they are going to continue not just for a year, not just in an 18-month pilot, but that they continue in a long term so that kids can be successful in their public school experience from pre-kindergarten all the way to their grade 12 years. Unfortunately, despite all of that overwhelming support, despite the 11,000 emails that were sent last week to elected officials, despite the 7,700 members who joined rallies from April through the fall of last year, and despite the 3,300 letters that myself and the president of the Canadian Teachers Federation delivered to the Premier and the Minister of Education yesterday, they're still not listening. The Minister of Education yesterday says it makes no difference. But it is critical that this government start taking this process seriously and start seeing how serious teachers and the public are taking this. What teachers are asking for around class complexity isn't revolutionary. We're not trying to change the world. We're trying to ensure that there are commitments for our kids in a long term. Other provinces have done this. Like I've said before, most recently, Quebec and Ontario made agreements with teachers that ensured a minimum level of support for kids across those provinces. This should not be this difficult. If this government has real intentions of addressing class complexity in the long term, longer than the pilot projects, if they intend on expanding those pilot projects or funding them appropriately to expand, I'm not sure why they are so afraid to include it within an agreement with teachers, unless they just don't want to be held accountable to those commitments. This agreement, though, is not just with government and teachers. This agreement also includes school boards. So an article on class complexity does not take away school boards' ability or their authority in any way to make the decisions at that local level. It only strengthens that ability to make those decisions. Right now, government sets the budget, and school boards have to fit within that budget. And we hear school boards talk about the underfunding of education and the difficult decisions that they're forced to make because of underfunding or funding that doesn't meet the rate of inflation, funding that doesn't meet enrollment increases. So this ensures that not only they have the ability to make those decisions, or at least make better decisions of where additional resources can be allocated to classrooms, it also ensures that there's a mechanism for teacher voice to be included in those conversations, because teachers are the ones who are working on the front lines with kids. Teachers are the ones who see their students every single day. They see their struggles and they know what those kids need. And so having teacher voice included within the decisions will only strengthen the decisions to ensure that kids are the ones who are benefiting from this increased funding and this additional funding intended to address class complexity. We need solutions and we need long-term commitments to solve the problems in class complexity. This isn't going to be solved in 1 year. I've also said that before. This has been a decade-long problem that government has created, but we need to start to see improvements and commitments towards getting us back to where we were when we were first in the country. But again, we're now 8th, and we need to start working our way up that ranking. So today, we are announcing another 5-day countdown to our next sanction action on Monday, or that will begin on Monday, January 22nd. We will provide more information on what that action is, no less than 48 hours before that day. And it doesn't have to be this way, though. Teachers don't want to be taking any sanction action. I can guarantee you, teachers would have much rather been in their classrooms yesterday than out on the picket line in that extreme cold. But we cannot continue without knowing that our students will have the adequate supports that they need, and not just in a 1-year time, in a longer period, over an extended period of time where kids can see year after year their needs are being met. This government has said that we've drawn a line in the sand, but it doesn't have to be this way. The support yesterday was absolutely incredible, and we hope that you continue to call on government to change their course and engage in meaningful conversations with teachers at the bargaining table. We can find solutions there. We can make commitments that will benefit kids, not just this year, but in years to come. But we need to have both sides willing to have a meaningful conversation and make a back and forth negotiations and back and forth commitments where both sides can be satisfied at the end of it. And in the end, our goal is that agreement. In the end, our goal is to know that every kid across Saskatchewan has the supports that they need to be successful in their schools. So thank you for joining me today. I'd be happy to take some questions if there are any questions. Laura?
So when you say job action, this is, I'm reading between the lines here, you guys are planning to walk off the job once again. Can you just explain what that would look like?
Well, will provide additional information on what the specific action could be or will be at a future date, like I said, within or no less than 48 hours before Monday, January 22nd. That job action could be, like you said, another walkout. It could be a withdrawal of voluntary services. It could be a restriction of teachers' hours of work or more of a work to rule. So we'll provide additional information of what the specific action is at a future point in time, no less than that 48 hours prior to Monday. But at this point, we are just letting government know, we're putting them on notice that they've got 5 days, change their mandate. If they change their mandate, we can stop the clock. We can get back to the table and have meaningful conversations. But they need to be able to have a back and forth. And right now that hasn't been happening. Alec?
Yeah, so sorry, that was kind of where I was going to go with this. Just trying to ask if this is another strike or withdrawing of extracurriculars or what exactly. But so the deadline is Monday, so that's when we can expect it, or sometime between then. I was just hoping you could elaborate a little bit on tactic and timeline here.
Well, we provided more notice the past countdown. We gave the notice right at the beginning of the countdown of what the specific action would be. But based on legislation, we are only required to provide 48 hours notice of the specific action. But we do want to put government on notice that we will have an additional action beginning on January 22nd. But we'll provide more information of what that specific action is no later than 48 hours before. So at the latest, it would be Saturday morning. So you should expect an announcement unless, like I said, unless government comes back with a renewed mandate, we would be happy to get back to the table if they'll make that commitment to start engaging in real conversations in a negotiations process that's a good faith negotiations process with teachers.
I suppose the government has said time and time again that they're not going to address this at the bargaining table. The STF has said that essentially this is the keystone issue in bargaining. I suppose outside of a flat out strike extended past one day, I mean, what options do you really foresee here? Because they weren't swayed yesterday. Minister Cockrell kind of doubled down in a lot of what he was saying. So I suppose outside of ratcheting up the job action, what foreseeable end to this do you see?
Well, our goal has always been to get to an agreement. We don't understand why the government continues to refuse to engage in conversations. Even yesterday, I heard a comment from the minister say that we made agreements in past rounds of bargaining to create those committees. Unfortunately, the committees were ineffective in being able to provide meaningful, tangible solutions to address class complexity. So we have talked about this in previous rounds of bargaining. So I don't know why this is the line in the sand that they've drawn for this round of bargaining, to not engage in these conversations. As well, like I said, other provincial organizations have negotiated around class complexity in various different ways. We can find a Saskatchewan solution to this article. It doesn't have to be taken from other provinces, but the fact that other provinces have it means that we can do it as well. We just have to have that political will to be able to commit to those long-term solutions. And we're hopeful that our continued actions will do that. We're also hopeful that through that public support, government starts to listen. Really, government is accountable to the residents, to the members of Saskatchewan. And we saw, like I said, incredible, overwhelming support from members of the public, not just parents, not just students, not just teachers, members of the public who have said, my business depends on having a high quality education system because my employees come from that public education system. Our doctors come from that public education system. And if we don't have a high quality public education system, some of those people will leave our province as well. So we want to ensure that we are investing in our future of this province, and that we are not just supporting kids while they're here, but supporting them for long-term success to live in Saskatchewan. I don't understand why government is refusing to make those commitments for our kids. But like I said, we're hopeful that through the communication that they get from the public, that they start to listen and start to make commitments.
And just the last one from me here. Looks like Edmonton School Divisions recently got a contract that does address certain classroom complexity issues. I was just hoping to get your thoughts on that and what that might, I suppose, augur for additional conversations, or where you might like to see CBA talks go.
Well, like I said, this isn't new. These are items that other provincial organizations, other local associations have had conversations around. This is not revolutionary. And so governments and transigents, the refusal to have conversations and make commitments, they're the ones that are kind of the outlier among the provinces. So we need to make sure that we are supporting the kids of our province, and that's what teachers are trying to do through the negotiations process. Coralie?
Yes, hi. So we heard from a teacher that if negotiations do not progress, the exam week or exam session may be disrupted. Could you comment on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely, it could. But like I said, teachers don't want to take these actions. We want to be in our classroom supporting our kids. And yes, we understand any job sanction that we do is going to create disruption in schools, and it's unfortunate that we see that. But at the same time, we have seen a decade of underfunding in education. So essentially, those kids who are in grade 10, 11, and 12, they have experienced year after year after year, fewer and fewer supports for them. And so one day will create a disruption, but we're hoping for a long-term improvement for students across the province. Laura, I see you've got a question in the chat. Can you say anything about how long the next job action, strike, or withdrawal of service will last? And can you also elaborate whether the 48 hours starts on Saturday on the weekend, or is it business days? So first off, we'll provide that additional information when we make our announcement later this week. Like I said, no less than 48 hours prior to Monday. And that 48 hours notice also does include weekends. So it could be no later than Saturday morning before that school time would typically start. So around 8 a.m. Saturday morning would be the very latest you would hear from us. Josh?
Hi, yes, I'm just curious, you know, I know, you're, you know, legally 48 hours is all, you're required to provide in terms of notice. You know, before the strike yesterday, there was 5 days of notice, you know, gave parents lots of heads up to, you know, a lot of random camps and things sprung up for kids to go to. You know, could happen as late as Saturday. I mean, why? I'm just curious what the thinking is behind that, because you know, before that notice gave people a little more time to prepare, but this uncertainty now would probably make it a little more challenging for parents to plan, depending on what might happen.
I completely understand. I am a parent as well, and so shifts in planning create a lot of stress in a parent's life. I feel it this morning too, just as an individual experience. I understand that it creates a disruption, and we get that. We provided additional notice for the first day because it was something that we knew was going to be unexpected from parents across Saskatchewan. And so we wanted to provide them with additional notice to be able to be flexible, or to be able to provide them enough time to make the plans necessary so that their kids could be safe on those days too. But like I said, we said it last week when we made the announcement that we won't always be providing that much notice. And so that's where we are right now. The 5-day countdown, though, is to, like I said, let people know that a potential action is coming on the Monday, and to encourage them to contact their MLA. Just like I have concerns about the shifting in schedules, I know other parents do. Contact their MLA. They should be more concerned about the experiences that their kids are having. And that's what we heard yesterday. Parents want what's best for their kids. They want to know that their kids are supported in their pre-K to 12 education. This government needs to start listening to the people who elect them, and not just the people who elect them. They need to start listening to kids as well, and ensure that every person across Saskatchewan has their voice heard through that democratic process. And they start responding to those needs and making commitments for a long-term supports. Laura?
I'm just curious, this is an election year. What does this mean for the STF in terms of politics? I know in the past, the STF has urged teachers to purchase memberships to pick a premier. What does this mean for this year?
Well, in terms of our process and negotiations, it's unfortunate that it becomes political. Really, these should be looking at educational issues, which is what we have been talking about, is the needs of our kids. But where it gets political is where we start to see actions from government to sidestep that bargaining process and sidestep the need to make long-term commitments. So we have a pilot project that has been announced, but we have seen in previous rounds where there have been election promises and they go away very quickly afterwards. So we want to make sure that we are, and that agreement, a long-term commitment that could be done through the negotiations process, would take the politics out of the classroom. And that is what we want to see. We want to see decisions not being made out of political gain by this government. We want to see decisions being made in the best interest of kids. And it shouldn't matter who the elected officials are when we're making those decisions, because we should be listening to the kids, we should be listening to their parents, we should be listening to teachers when we're talking about the educational needs here in Saskatchewan.
So this election year, are you going to be pushing any support of any certain candidate, or what could that look like? So
Saskatchewan is a nonpartisan organization. So we are engaged in politics, obviously, just due to the relationship that we have with government. But we do not support any one specific party or any one specific candidate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Eric?
The education minister mentioned yesterday that classroom complexity and sizes are a line in the sand, and he believes that that's a school board issue. You addressed it in your comments here off the top that you feel can be a partnership between boards and the and teachers. I guess, can you elaborate a little bit and where you see that partnership, or how that partnership could work to kind of keep those solutions maybe to the individual schools and divisions, like the minister says he wants to keep those issues?
Absolutely. So like I said, we have seen solutions in other areas of the country. Our proposal that we put forward as an opening position was really intended to be a minimum standard. It shouldn't be a standard that everyone necessarily strives to, but then it provides a baseline of what students should be able to expect for supports regardless of where they are across the province. And then depending on local needs, school divisions could put additional resources in specific areas. Maybe they want smaller class sizes for their youngest classes, smaller than what the ratio was that was set in contract. Maybe they want more reading intervention supports. Maybe they want more mental health counselors. And so local divisions could still provide that local decision-making on where the additional supports would go, but we would be looking at setting a baseline, a minimum standard for across the province on what we would expect for every kid across Saskatchewan. Another way that could be addressed is through a class complexity fund, allocating dollars and providing those dollars, like we saw the $20 million as part of the $40 million that was announced last June. They could provide that commitment, but ensuring that teacher voice is included within the conversations ensures that the focus remains on the kids and the focus remains on supports for students. It doesn't take away local school division authority. It doesn't take away that decision making, but it's a commitment. It's a partnership to say government will provide the funding. Local school divisions can make the decisions in consultation with the teachers who are supporting those kids and seeing the needs on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so not seeing any other hands up, I do just want to reiterate our sincere thanks for all of the support that we saw yesterday. Like I said, businesses, churches, other public groups who open their doors to teachers, even just individuals who open their doors to teachers to let them warm up during the very chilly activities yesterday, or join teachers during the activities yesterday. The support that we have seen across the province was absolutely incredible and just goes to show how important this issue is to not just teachers, but to everyone across the province. And we need government to take it as seriously as everyone else is doing. So appreciate all of the work that you do as well in helping to share these messages and to shine a light on the issues that we're talking about within education. And we are hopeful that we don't have to make an announcement of what the action is. We're hopeful government gets back to us and says they're ready to have a conversation. They're ready to address these issues and make long-term commitments. But the ball is in their court to make sure that we can avoid any further action. So thank you all for your time. And if you have additional questions, please reach out to our communications department. But again, thank you all for what you do.